Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of roboticsandautomationnews.com. In this interview, I speak to Matt Mong, Vice President of Market Innovation at a company called Adeaca Corporation, which is a software company that offers a way to simplify what can be quite complex, large project management. Okay, so here we are today. My name is Abdul Muntakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News. Today I'm with Matt Mong, Vice President Market Innovation at Adeaca Corporation. And Matt is going to tell us a little bit about himself and his company in a short presentation, after which I will ask a few questions. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Abdul. I guess let me begin by introducing myself. I'm Matt Mong. I am, as you said, the VP of Market Innovation at Adeaca. And what we do at Adeaca is, or what we're trying to do, is really create a new category, get this new concept of what we call project business automation out into the market. So I guess to let me begin by introducing project business automation, PBA uh, for short. Uh, um, and I just want to cover some basics around it so people have a general understanding regarding PBA, so we can let our conversation flow from there. So the before I can actually talk about project business automation, we first need to agree on what is project business. So, the way we look at it, project business is any type of company that primarily provides its products or services through projects. And so what do we mean by that? So sometimes these companies and industries are described as project based or project driven. That includes construction, engineering, uh, project driven manufacturing, engineer to order manufacturing, and all kinds of professional services. And it includes, many other industries that can fall under these, including specialty contracting, energy design, also aerospace defense, industrial equipment manufacturing, biotech, and then of course all types of various times of consulting. Um, so at first, it seems like we're talking about seemingly very different industries here, uh, but the one thing that they have in common is that they are all project based. They deliver their products or services through projects. And this is really the key to understand why project business automation makes sense for these companies. So even they say, they may be in construction or ETO manufacturing or aerospace defense. 80% of what these companies do is similar. It's projects. And if we sort of look at the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule, sure, there are specific industry needs for each of these, but the majority of their business processes do revolve around completing projects on time, on budget for their customers. So the major point here is just to, if they view themselves as like this as a project business, then they'll be able to understand that projects are the core of their business, and when it comes to setting up their business and their systems, they need to think projects first. Projects should be at the center, and that will lead to the ability to systemize and automate a lot of their processes down the road. And but the way things operate today, that's simply not the case, and this leads to many of the problems that these types of companies face. So let me just get into some of these core problems for these project businesses. So to run this type of project-based company today, be it construction engineering, ETO manufacturing, or some type of services company, most use a big string of different applications. Sorry about that. All types of different applications that are disparate, uh, really poorly designed to support how the business actually works. Projects, as you see, are not at the center of this array uh, in this environment. So it's not unusual for these companies to be using 10 to 15 different major applications. Typically, they have project scheduling tool, uh, whether that's Microsoft Project or Oracle Primavera. They have an ERP, but it's usually relegated to a simple accounting function and billing and things like that. They may have other applications for time and expense, estimating, resource management, things like that, but whether they built them themselves or they bought them. But as you see here, the biggest silo there, the most widely used tool in project based companies is Excel today. So what ends up happening, they're managing $100 million projects in spreadsheets. Um, and these companies really try to adapt their processes around all these different tools and disconnected tools, which creates, this disjointed, opaque environment. Makes it really hard for even the most experienced people to create a stable and profitable business. Nothing's connected. Nothing talks to one another, and this just causes massive delays across the board. No good information sharing, process inefficiencies, and just really just inaccurate data. So we think the solution calls for this new category of business systems for these types of companies. And we coined the term project business automation to represent that category. And we're encouraging analysts, other vendors, thought leaders, and others to pick up on this concept and start using it to define these types of solutions. Because project businesses should really be seen as an industry or a sector in itself, if you will, especially when it comes to systems, sort of like retail or distribution. If you're a retail company, it doesn't really matter what, like for example, what type of product you sell to the consumer, whether it's sporting goods, electronics, or some other type of good. If you're a retail company, your systems are connected end to end, from your supply chain all the way through your point of sale system. But that's not the case with project businesses. So we need to think that way for project businesses, because it's not just about project management, right? It's about managing your entire project-based company and all the associated processes. And PBA does that. It creates that fully integrated end-to-end business system for these project-based companies. And we break it down here into those three things that a PBA solution should do, and that is standardize, integrate, and systemize or automate, uh, the business processes and data of these project-based companies into one system, and that includes project financials and the costing side, the cost management side for these companies. It includes project management and all the operational activities. And then project, portfolio, business analytics as well should all be included in that as well. They need that real-time insight in order to operate effectively. All this needs to be included in a PBA system. And as a result, it really eliminates the need for all the point solutions they typically use to do these processes, as we saw before, how they normally operate. So all their workflows and all their data are integrated seamlessly, instantly, and this enables that real-time visibility that I talked about into what's going on in their company, and gives them much greater control over the business at that point. Because with PBA, a customer always has detailed insight into the fiscal health of the company, and this results in lower risk and a lot better project outcomes for their customers. So that's sort of PBA in a nutshell. That makes sense. I think you're on mute if you're talking.
Sorry, I was on mute. I've just unmuted myself. Yeah,
Uh,
that does yes, that does make sense, and it's a very broad area. The whole process. I think it ties in with things like business process automation or something called robotic process automation. But this is obviously, as you say, project related. It has definite time frames and definite objectives. So yeah, it's different to what I've heard of before.
oh,
One of the things I wanted to ask you is give us an example of some of the specific tasks that might be automated using software like this.
sure, sure. Let me first say that, yeah, so it is people looking for business process automation tend to find us as well. As you mentioned, it's sort of in the same umbrella. PBA falls into that umbrella of business process automation, but business process automation applied to project-based companies, that's PBA, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So so an example of some automation that can happen. So for example, if you're a manufacturing company or project manufacturing company, so let's say you build widgets, custom widgets for the aerospace industry. Well, you're going to have material and supplies you're going to need to build whatever you're going to build for your customer. So what typically happens today is when you're planning a project or estimating a project or even just in the middle of a project, uh, supplies are handled by procurement and by or the material people. And then you've got to, as a manager, you've got to go over to them and figure out what the supply is, when can we get it, and what's the cost and things like that. And it's a very manual process at this point. It's in a totally different system than my project planning tool. So what we do is we bring those two worlds together, and right there in the project schedule, if you're building a project, you can see that you need a certain material, and you can see that there's a constraint. Maybe there's a delay. You can't get that material until a certain date. So now you have to adjust your schedule to fit when you can get that material, or you're going to have to go to a different supplier to get that material. So that process is automated there between procurement and the supply chain, and then the project that is really driving the product development for that company. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, and it's something that it made me think of consultancies, the Accentures of the world and Deloittes of the world. They'll probably, I mean, I don't know about these things in depth, but I would imagine that they're often asked to manage a particular project, go through a particular phase of a company's life cycle, or particular period of time where they're restructuring and things
Mhm.
like that. So that's something that I imagine it'd be useful for, perhaps. I don't know what's your what are your customers anyway? I don't know if you can name any of them. I know you said about certain sectors, but what are the areas that you're finding people being applying it more or more enthusiastically, if you like, or more effectively?
Yeah. So what's interesting is those sectors that I mentioned earlier. So your construction, your manufacturing, and your professional services. We do have a broad array of customers across all those sectors. And I would say, um, you mentioned the Accentures of the world. Those professional services companies definitely need stuff like this they that's what they do. They do projects, and we do have some customers in that realm where they're using it, and they're heavy, human resource management, right? So they're able to connect up their HRIS in their ERP, and then us, and then bring that all together into one system so that they're able to really efficiently manage their human resources and increase. Of course, the whole goal for them is maximize their resource utilization. So nobody's really just sitting on the bench. Um, as far as the other sectors, we do have really healthy interest in the manufacturing sector, I would say. But this, all types. So we have, customers in that produce, electronics, custom electronics for big devices such as airplanes or things like that, or tanks. And Northrop Grumman is one of our customers. Um, we have uh, you also biotech is another one where things a lot of what they do is project based. And so from the development, research and development, to the testing and pushing it out, can all be project based. And so we have a lot of companies in that area as well. So it really does spread across these different industries and sectors for sure.
Mm. Well, the things that I've heard of from your earlier graphic, obviously Excel, I've heard of ERP. I'm sure everybody knows, but I'll mention the full name of the Enterprise Resource Planning, I think it is. So that's something that uh, I don't know, is often used as the kind of highest level. I mean, it's a very interesting graphic that you showed earlier with the Excel being the most widely used application. I thought it would be ERP, but this is another. This is, yeah, that's the one. But I thought the central one would be the ERP, but you're saying that Excel is
Well,
the one that's used more often.
well, I would say that they're both used uh, probably as often as as each other. However, in a project-based company, the ERP just isn't as central. It's not as it's like I said, it's a financial system, so it does their accounting for them and their billing and things like that. But as far as actually helping support and systemize any their processes, it doesn't do any of that for them. Whereas that it does for a traditional manufacturing company or a retail company or distribution company. It is the central application and everything gets run through there. That's not how it is in these project-based companies typically. Um, they're using Excel to manipulate data and move it, from their project management application into their ERP so that they can do their financials. So it's just, Excel becomes this hub of just data repositories all over the place.
Yeah, ours is our website is a very small business, but even so, it kind of it's a challenge. None of us really have any business background, and we've used the equivalent of Excel, the Apple version of it, Numbers, as well as Google
Mm.
Docs, the Sheets, I think they call it, and yeah, a variety of other things to try and bring everything together in a central place so that we can see everything in one place, and therefore maybe pick out certain parts of it that we could make more efficient or streamlined. We ended up duplicating work and didn't really manage it very well. And I can't honestly say it's a big enough business to worry too much about it. But obviously, if you've
Yeah,
got a large business, as you said earlier, if you're talking about $100 million project, then duplication of work is quite a serious thing. And there's lots of other serious inefficiencies. I suppose my question now is, have you got any quantifiable things that you can tell us about the efficiencies or the gains of using software like yours or your software in particular?
sure. Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to think about this. It is hard to quantify because we're talking about, the sort of the totality of how they do business processes. So our customers uh, do come back to us with some numbers, but again, those are sort of the hard costs, and that's not all accounted for in their gains. in their profitability that goes up. So for example, uh, we've had when you eliminate all these different applications, you're talking about eliminating the costs for them, just to license costs, but also maintenance costs and also support costs that you have to manage and maintain this array of applications, right? So that goes away. So that cost goes away, and then you're talking, which could be a lot, significant amount of money for some of these companies, especially the larger enterprises. Um, and then you're talking about all the people, all the controllers that have to manage and maintain this sort of convoluted process. Um, Now you can redeploy those assets to much more efficient um, places, much more efficient applicate. You can use them. The utilization of those resources goes up, and so you lose that cost as well. So there's a huge hard cost savings there. But then you start to get into uh, some of the positive sides. So what can you do now that you have everything integrated into one system? And We're talking about accelerating the sales process so you can actually increase your capacity and accelerating the or increase your capacity is from a sales standpoint, so you can bring in more deals, and then you can also increase your capacity as far as managers and project managers being able to, and controllers being able to manage more projects because they aren't having to do all this other stuff. They have it all in one system, and it's all automated, but a lot of the processes are automated. So it's just about keeping up with it, and then doing the things that you need to do strategically as a manager, instead of being bogged down with data entry into different systems. So
Right.
there's a lot of that goes on. And I could go on, but I mean, I think that the three core areas that you're talking about improvement into is costs. It is risk, what we call risk readiness, because these businesses are incredibly risky a lot of times. So it um, so the cost management piece is, if you can manage your costs in real time on these projects, it makes it much better. You can keep your costs down. And then the riskiness is mitigated much faster, much easier, because everything you learn about issues much quicker and earlier on before they become big problems downstream in the project, and then all of a sudden the project basically is losing money and you can't do anything about it. And then there's deliverability. So on the operational side, for these project-based companies, it is all about being able to deliver those projects on time for their customers. So you want to do that, but you also want to maximize your resource utilization while doing that. And if you don't know what's going on and how to do that, then you won't be able to do that. So that's what we provide: the knowledge and the capabilities to maximize those resources.
Okay. And what's your relationship with Microsoft? And you mentioned to me when we spoke earlier about Microsoft Dynamics 365, I think the full name is. Tell us about that and how it sort of fits in with what you offer to people.
Yeah. So, if you see there in the middle of the screen, those screens, where we are a Microsoft Dynamics based application. So what we do is we turn the Microsoft Dynamics, it's called Microsoft Dynamics 365 Finance. That's their sort of the flagship ERP. So we turn that into, with our project business automation, we turn that into a business system that works for project-based companies for these different industries. Um, so we bring all the project processes and automation inside that ERP. So that at this point, that's who we work with. We've been working with Microsoft, for almost a couple decades now. We have very close relationship with them. In fact, um, they test our system before they release any updates to their ERP. So they test their platform against our application just to make sure that they work together. and they didn't cause any problems for customers going when it goes out the door. So very close relationship there with Microsoft, and it's a great platform because it's very well, as in the name, it's very dynamic, user friendly, easy. As far as the application and being able to navigate for an ERP, it's very user friendly, and so we definitely like it for that reason. But yeah, so that's we've been with Microsoft for a long time now.
Great. Now, what's the future for this kind of software? I mean, as I said, with small businesses, it's I don't know, it's probably difficult to sort of justify large expenses on software and things. But if you've got a business that, as you say, is a multi-million-dollar operation or project that's like that, this kind of thing would become more and more industry standard or used more widely. What's the level of usage of this type of thing? I know you hinted earlier or gave an idea of how generally things work with the graphic, with the Excel silo in the middle. But what's the future for this kind of thing? Are people going to use it more and more? Is the software going to evolve a bit more, maybe become more user friendly, maybe integrate artificial intelligence to provide more insights and suggestions as to how they can make things more efficient? How do you see this area developing?
Absolutely. I think great question. There's a big future, I think, in project business automation. I think we're just scratching the surface here. Uh, Obviously, our application in particular is very robust, and we are evolving it all the time. We've come out with two major new releases just this year so far, adding some great new functionality. And when you're talking, when your concept is project business automation, that's a broad category, and so we're going to be able to grow this thing um, for a long time. And there are there are things to consider as you mentioned, sort of the smaller companies. We are thinking about that. Typically right now, our companies range anywhere from 100 people to 5,000, 10,000 people. So really the mid-size kind of enterprise, but it depends on the type of company, as you said, you are, and the value that you'll get from it. So even if you're a small company, but you see the value and you're going to realize value from it, then it may make sense, because perhaps it might cost you a head count in license costs, uh, per year. But if you think about that, how many head counts are you saving then, as far as not just, you're not eliminating them, but about in the future, as far as just the cost of if you could hire someone to do all this for you, would it be worth it? If you think that in that concept, then these smaller companies can be a good fit as well. And we are exploring different opportunities there to expand the market, both upstream and downstream. And as far as AI, that's definitely, we actually have a white paper on how we think AI can be applied in this concept in project business automation, and we've been in talks with Microsoft about obviously using Azure and their data and analytics AI to help our customers in the future. So it's a definitely a sort of emerging area for us, but it's definitely on our radar. So I assume we'll probably have some of that come out over the next couple of years.
Okay. Is this a quick question, just to finish off? Is this something that can be categorized as business intelligence? I've heard of a category of business software applications that are called business intelligence. I mean, I'm not 100% sure what those are, but is this categorized in that area?
So not exactly. I mean, BI is a part of what we do. that's actually included in what we do. If you see here on the slide, Project Insight, that is about the not just the project, but also the whole project business, having insight into what is going on, uh, how your projects are doing, how your portfolio is doing, and then altogether how the business is doing. We provide a lot of those analytics, a lot of that intelligence for them. Um, and so I wouldn't categorize our solution as a BI tool. BI tool is a lot about you know visualization, consolidation of data, and being able to analyze and slice and dice your data in different ways. And there are lots of different tools out there to do that. Power BI, Microsoft Power BI is one, and we actually use that tool in our system, in our application. I wouldn't categorize it as a BI tool, but we have it. I would say that it's included in our solution.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a yeah, it's from a point of view of someone who doesn't really have a great deal of experience with this kind of thing. It's just tempting to think that you can just press a button and the intelligent insight aspect of it will run your business for you, basically, which is probably not too far off in the future. But certainly, this is something that it takes a big leap towards that.
Absolutely, that's what we're trying to get to. I mean, uh, I think what's interesting is these project-based companies are sort of behind the curve on this, right? So your traditional industries, where you have very highly repetitive processes, they can be standardized and automated very easily at this point with technology. With projects, though, every project's unique. So how do you standardize, how do you systemize, how do you automate? Well, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to tackle that. It's a tough problem, but if you tackle it at the right level, you can do that. You can standardize a lot of it, you can systemize a lot of it, and automate a lot of these connections and all these processes.
Right. Okay, Matt. Is there something that you want to say that I didn't ask about?
Um, I don't think so. I mean, I appreciate you having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to talk to you and get an insight into very sophisticated software. We don't always do sort of software stories because they are, complex and difficult to understand sometimes if you don't use a bit of software. Actually, I'll just ask you one more question.
Sure.
Well, one of the things I know, Microsoft Dynamics 365 is very widely used. It's one of the largest software applications of its kind. But the whole process of learning a bit of software is very important to people who, when they're at a point of wanting to, choosing an application, choosing software to buy, the learning and training and things like that are very important. They need to be able to use it fairly well, because sometimes, me anyway, I need to be able to achieve something fairly quickly. The learning curve has to be quite short. Yeah, steep is okay, but as long as it's not too long. I mean, how do you market this kind of software, or how do you persuade people to use it, adopt it, and get the most out of it by using it properly?
Right. That definitely still is a challenge. I think with every organization when you adopt new technology, there is a change management process that needs to happen, and the companies that go about that systematically have the most success. So I mean, there's not one way to do it, but looking at the Dynamics platform and our solution in particular, it's as easy as you can get to use at this point. It is, like I said, it's very user friendly, graphical interface, very easy to navigate. Um, but I will say, the subject matter experts will find it easier than just a brand new user who isn't familiar with these types of processes to begin with. right? So if you're not a project manager and I throw you in front of um, a work breakdown structure, you may not know what to do. Whereas a project manager who's been using Microsoft Project or Oracle Primavera, they're going to be able to dive right in pretty quickly. And they're just going to get a lot more um, uh, value out of what we provide. That, and so they'll be able to realize that value pretty quickly.
Okay. All right, Matt. Well, thank you very much for your time and your insight. It's a very interesting bit of software. Good luck with everything.
Well, thank you. I mean, just to sign off, I just hope people, if you want to learn more about project business automation, there are a couple things on our website you can get. There's a project business automation blueprint, which is it's not really about Adeaca. It's about project business automation as a category and what it means and what it can mean for your company and what it should include and those types of things. So definitely visit our website and you can download that for free. And then we also have an assessment. Whereas if you're curious, if you're the type of company where PBA makes sense, please go to adeaca.com/PBA-fit, and we there's a survey there that'll help um, set you up with a one-on-one consultation with one of our experts, and we can just walk you through whether or not PBA makes sense for you.
Okay, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Abdul.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.